8 reasons why India will rule the world in 2050. 2 centuries ago, no one would have believed that the United States of America would ever become a country of any significance. The US was no more than a troubled colony of the British Empire, torn apart by domestic controversies over slavery, later that century resulting in a devastating civil war. In 1800, the United States had a small population of about 5 million and a tiny army. The United Kingdom and Spain, for example, both had populations of over 10 million. Germany had about 20 million and France was close to 30 million. The United States was located far away from these traditional European superpowers. Back then, there was no reason to believe that the United States of America would possess an abundance of relevant natural resources. Because, for example, coal and oil had no meaning to society yet. Gold did, but it wasn't discovered yet on a large scale in the United States. Back then, the United States was on nobody's shortlist of superpowers in the making. It took the discovery of oil and gold and the ending of a bloody civil war to lead the United States to an impressive growth of its population and economy. And only then, when Europe was destroyed by World War I, the US could rise to stardom and develop into a true world-leading nation. Soon after World War I, the Soviet Union started developing too in a remarkable way as a military and economic powerhouse. When Europe was even more shattered after World War II, the global balance of power had turned into a rather static bipolar situation, with the US on one side and the Soviet Union on the other side. It was once feared in the US that Japan would take over the role of the leading global power, but a lack of military options and the crush of the Japanese economy in the 1990s shattered that ambition for Japan for the long term. Then China came along, with its ever-growing economy and its military getting stronger every day. So now there is a troika of superpowers dominating international affairs: Russia, China, and the United States of America. I would like to add India to that short list of superpowers, and I want to make a prediction. The power of India will grow for the next decades, and it will grow faster than the other 3 superpowers. One day, perhaps around the year 2050, a moment will arrive that India is the most powerful nation in the world. No, this is not a joke. I do realize that some people who watch this video will laugh at the idea of India becoming the most powerful country in the world, but I'm serious about the possibility, and I will support my statement with 8 reasons why India will rule the world in 2050. Reason number 1. The army. With an active military of 1.4 million personnel, India has the second largest army in the world. Only China has a larger number of military personnel. The American army is smaller than the Indian army, and now of course the number of personnel does not reflect the actual firepower or the capability of waging war of a country. But when looking at more military data, India shows to be an impressive military power in many ways. When it comes to military aircraft, India is the number 4 in the world with around 1,100 fighter jets. And when it comes to battle tanks, India is the number 6 in the world with around 4,500 units. So no matter how you look at this, India is one of the largest and most powerful armies in the world, and their army is even growing bigger and bigger in the near future. Reason number 2, the nuclear option. Only 9 countries in the whole world are known to possess nuclear weapons or are suspected of having nuclear weapons. India is one of them. This is the wild card in the game of world domination. It can highly advantage the position of a country in any international conflict. No country messes with a country that possesses nuclear warheads, and the select few who own them are among the most dominant nations in the world. Reason number 3, economic growth. The current GDP of a country determines an important part of today's power of a country. High economic growth, however, determines an important part of the future power of countries. India is one of the very select few who have both a large current GDP combined with a very high growth rate of that GDP. The USA has a much larger GDP than India, but its growth is much less than India. Only China and India create this special league of countries with both a top 10 position in the list of largest GDPs in the world, combined with an annual economic growth of no less than 7%. It's precisely the already large size of the Indian economy, combined with its huge economic growth, that lifts its status into the superpower stardom. Reason number 4, scale. Because of its huge population, everything in India happens in a big manner. But it can go either way. If a crisis would emerge in India, for example in employment, even a 1% decline of jobs would have grave consequences. The Indian workforce consists of over 500 million people. If their employment would decline with only 1%, that would mean that more than 5 million people would lose their jobs. But when it comes to, for example, building large-scale infrastructure, India can leverage its huge population to get any job done. Its supply of manpower is virtually endless. Just like China, and India is capable of building huge projects that no other country could pull off. Reason number 5, population growth. Now the first 4 reasons are also applicable to China. China too has a huge army, a huge population, nuclear weapons, and China has a very high economic growth. So based upon the first 4 reasons, one could argue that the future power of India and China would develop along the same kind of pattern, with the big difference that China has a huge lead, making it practically impossible for India to ever come close to the dominant position that China has. But there are big differences between India and China that give India significant advantages. One of them is the population growth. Although the current populations of China and India are close to being the same, the Indian population growth is much higher than the population growth in China. The current Indian population growth is about 1.2% per year. Population growth in China is just under 0.5%, making the difference in population growth 0.7% per year. Because of the previous argument being the huge scale of India, a 0.7% difference in population growth is huge, but the difference is going to be even bigger. The United Nations predicts that the population of China will start to decline as of 2020. The population of India, however, is predicted to grow for the next 50 years. In 2030, according to the United Nations, the Indian population will outrank China by 112 million people. That's the entire population of Germany and Canada combined. In 2040, the difference in population between India and China has grown to 239 million people. That's the entire population of Germany, Canada, and Japan combined. In 2050, the Indian population will beat the Chinese by 357 million. That is the entire population of Germany, Canada, Japan, France, Australia, and North Korea combined. So again, that's not the size of India. It's only how much bigger India will be than China. So the coming decades, India's population is likely to get much larger than China's, leveraging its economy and military to an unprecedented scale that has never been seen before on this planet. Reason number 6, ICT. This is another reason that gives India an advantage over China. China has been specializing, if you will, in traditional industrial economic activities. The Chinese economy has a significant focus on manufacturing physical products and creating buildings and infrastructure. Now, I wouldn't want to say that manufacturing and building are not innovative industries, which they are, but India made another choice in its economic focus. India decided a long time ago it wanted to be the world's largest supplier of entertainment and ICT, and it's on schedule to complete that mission. The Mumbai area is home to the largest movie industry in the world, and the Bangalore area is now the second largest outlet of ICT companies in the world. It's predicted that Bangalore will even become bigger than the actual Silicon Valley area in California. By making these choices and fulfilling these ambitions, India is perhaps more equipped for future economic renewal than China is. Reason number 7, freedom. Another reason that gives India an advantage over China is freedom. India is the world's largest democracy. China is not a democracy and doesn't want to be one. Although, of course, India struggles with poverty, corruption, and injustice, it still is a democracy, and its economic model revolves around a free market system. Seen from that perspective, India is more likely to follow in the footsteps of the United States than China does. And that might be one of the reasons why India's economic growth rate is now overtaking China's growth rate. Imagine all of the people of India eventually becoming as wealthy as Americans. It would mean that the Indian economy would be very similar to the American economy. However, it would be 4 times bigger. Reason number 8, the underdog. What countries have been global superpowers for the past 5,000 years? I'll name you a few. Egypt, Greece, Italy, France, Spain, the United Kingdom, the United States, Russia, and now China. To be honest, China is sort of reprising and reinstating its former position. China has always been one of the most powerful countries in the world, but for the past century it has stood in the shadows of the United States. And now it's waking up again and restoring its superpower status. But India? No, not India. India is at almost none of the short lists of future superpowers that will dominate the world. Only very few people believe in this scenario. India is the underdog. It's the often undervalued and underappreciated country that many people associate with poverty and corruption. Therefore, the focus of countries like the US and China is on each other. The US and China are trying to compete and outdo each other constantly, just to make sure they have an advantage over the other. And up to now they haven't seen India as a serious competitor for world leadership, and they won't be seeing that for the next 10 years. And that is exactly what India needs to quietly grow its economy, modernize its society, and to gain military strength. up to a point where India will be the number 3 in the world in the year 2025. And then India will be far too big for the US and China to turn the tables. And then India will be well on its way to world domination. Do you think this is nonsense, or do you think it's possible for India to take on the role as world leader in the second half of the 21st century? Please share your opinion in the comments. Everyone is interested to hear your opinion on these matters, but please refrain from calling others stupid or ignorant or any other form of pointless name calling. Whatever you think about the author of the video and people who comment here on YouTube, that's completely irrelevant. Stick to the content. And the question is India going to be a superpower in the second half of the 21st century or not? Join the debate and make sure you share your opinions, experience, examples, arguments and evidence. You don't need to have a PhD to join the discussion. As long as you respect others, you are welcome to comment as often as you want. Thanks for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like these. Thanks again.